Have you ever felt like you're just drowning online? It's this tidal wave of headlines, memes, videos, all of it screaming for your attention. And you know what? That chaos, it's not an accident. It's often by design. Because hiding in all that noise, in that fog, there are these really sophisticated, coordinated campaigns. They're called Information Influence Operations, or IIOs for short. And their whole job is to shape what you think, how you feel, and even what you do. This isn't just random stuff floating around. It's targeted. It has a goal.
So, that's the million-dollar question, right? When some crazy story just blows up out of nowhere, or your feed is suddenly flooded with a super divisive topic, how do the pros actually trace it back to the source? How do they figure out who's pulling the strings? All right, so let's get into it. We're basically going to walk through the exact playbook that investigators use. First, we'll open up their toolkit. Then, we're going to follow the digital breadcrumbs, figure out the culprit's signature moves, uncover the big story they're pushing. And then, at the end, we'll see how they deliver the final verdict. So, this isn't just people guessing. Nope, there's a real, formal method for this kind of digital detective work. It's called an attribution framework, and it's basically a super structured way of gathering and making sense of all the clues. And the whole point of this framework is something called attribution. What does that mean? Well, it just means making a credible, evidence-backed claim about who's responsible for a campaign. It's kind of like an art expert trying to figure out if a painting is a real Rembrandt or just a really good fake. Same idea, but we're doing it in the digital world.
So this whole framework really stands on three pillars of evidence. You've got your technical evidence, that's the raw digital stuff they leave behind. Then there's behavioral evidence, that's all about their patterns, their signature moves. And finally, contextual evidence, that's the story itself, and asking who benefits. We're going to break down each one.
All right, first up, our investigation kicks off with the hard evidence. Think of it like we're putting on our digital forensics gloves and getting ready to follow the breadcrumbs.
This is what we call technical evidence. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the digital version of fingerprints or DNA, or maybe the getaway car left at a crime scene. These are the hard, observable traces you can actually measure and track. Things like website registrations, IP addresses, all that good stuff.
Okay, check this out. This is a real-world example. It's a who is record. Think of it as the registration file for a website that was tied to a disinformation campaign. Now, if you look at who registered it, see where it says private person? Uh-oh, that is a huge red flag right there. And then look at the company they used to register it, the registrar. It's RG.RU, a major Russian company that's often used in these types of operations. Every single one of these little details, it's a clue. But here's the thing. One clue by itself, it's not enough. The really critical part is that investigators don't just stop at one website or one account. No way. They use these technical clues to start mapping out the entire network, looking for connections, like shared servers or similar registration details, anything that shows it's all part of a bigger, coordinated machine.
So take a look at this pro-Kremlin Telegram channel. At first glance, it looks massive, right? Over 3 million subscribers. But then, look at that engagement rate. 55%. That is insanely high. For an analyst, a number like that just screams red flag. It means something's not right. Either bots are juicing the numbers, or it's part of some kind of super-controlled amplification network.
And here's what's really going on. This map tells the whole story. See that little dot in the middle? That's the channel we were just looking at. And all those lines? That's it talking to all these other channels. It's not just popular on its own. It's a central hub in a massive, coordinated web, constantly cross-promoting with other major pro-Kremlin accounts. See how that works? One little red flag just led us to the entire machine.
Okay, so we've got the infrastructure mapped out. Now for clue number 2, figuring out how these guys operate. It's time to decode their signature moves, their MO.
This brings us to behavioral evidence. The pros have a name for this. TTPs. That stands for tactics, techniques, and procedures. And the key here is, it's not about what they're saying, it's about how they're saying it and how they're spreading it. Are they using bots? Are they pretending to be someone they're not? Are they all posting at the same time?
This timeline? This is a fantastic example of behavioral evidence in action. It's tracking a fake story. Now, look really closely at the times. The state news agency, TASS.RU, they published the story at 8:02 a.m., okay? But the guy who was supposedly the source of the story, he doesn't post it on his own channel until 8:33 a.m. That's 31 minutes later. That's impossible, right? It's a massive giveaway that the whole thing was cooked up and coordinated from the start.
All right, so we've got the what, the infrastructure, and the how, their methods. But to really crack the case, we need that final piece of the puzzle. We need the why, the motive. We got to analyze the story they're actually trying to push.
And this is where contextual evidence comes into play. This is all about looking at the narrative itself. What are the themes? What emotions are they trying to hit? And most importantly, you have to ask that classic detective question, cui bono, a little Latin for you. It means who benefits? Who wins if people believe this story?
A really common tactic you'll see here is something called narrative laundering. It's a slick three-step process to make a total lie look true. Take this fake story about Ukraine's First Lady. Step 1, placement. It started with a bogus video on a fake Instagram account. Step 2, layering. That same story gets reposted across tons of shady websites and Telegram channels to make it look like everyone's talking about it. And finally, Step 3, integration. A few mainstream or foreign outlets see all this chatter and pick it up as a real story. And just like that, a complete fabrication gets laundered into something that looks credible.
And you have to understand, these things don't just happen randomly. This chart here gives you a sense of the massive ecosystem that can be fired up to launder a story. You've got official state media, websites linked to intelligence agencies, outlets owned by friendly billionaires, and even foreign amplifiers all chipping in. It's like a whole orchestra, and they're all playing from the exact same sheet music.
Okay, so we've collected all our clues. The technical, the behavioral, and the contextual. Now it's time to bring it all together, sit down, and deliver the final verdict. Now this is super important. Attribution is almost never a simple yes they did it or no they didn't. It's all about probability. So analysts use confidence levels. You'll hear them say things like low, medium, or high confidence to show just how sure they are based on the evidence they have. Think of it like a confidence meter.
And it's not even enough to just name a country. You have to get more specific and define the level of government involvement. This spectrum really helps with that. Is an operation just state-encouraged, where maybe some officials are just repeating a story that helps them? Or is it state-coordinated, where the government is actually providing support, like money or tech? Or is it the whole shebang, state-executed, meaning it's being run directly by a government agency? Each level is different and needs different proof.
So let's put it all together with a real case. A campaign that was pushing this corrupt Ukraine narrative. Okay, so what did we find? Technical evidence, botnets, and hundreds of Russian-linked sources all posting at the same time. Behavioral evidence, they were flooding comment sections using templates from a known Russian tasking group. And contextual evidence, the stories they were pushing were a perfect mirror of Russian state propaganda. So you put all of that together, and what's the verdict? The analysts reached a high-confidence assessment that this campaign was somewhere in the range of state-shaped to state-coordinated. So there you have it. We've just walked through the entire professional playbook for unmasking these operations, all the way from the digital fingerprints to the final verdict. You now have the basic toolkit to start thinking like an analyst. So, the next time you see some sketchy story just blowing up your feed, you can ask yourself, what am I going to look for?